Today's topic is very specific. We will be talking about matters, visitors from other planets, UFO, because they are often used, these visitors, by demons. Well, for a very specific purpose, that is, the original topic was that God, angels versus demons. The priest suggested that we would simply talk about demons and UFOs today. It's literally the thesis that these so-called aliens are demons, strictly speaking. Why this topic fascinates me, interests me? I have various passions there. I wrote poems, paints, draw and photographs. But also this topic really turned me on, as young people say. The reason for the interest in this topic are very personal. And now I'm going to share something I haven't shared in years. Only after recognition by an official appointed exorcist, I decide to talk about what I will talk about in a moment. Namely, when I was 5 years old, I had strong and very strange experience. I lived in the small town of Strzegowo. It is near Mława. It's Mazovian voivodeship. Maybe someone knows, there is a spinning right across the river. I lived in block of flat on first floor. It was already a block of flat at the edge of the village. I remember it was fall. I was 5 years old. I was walking into the room. It was raining, it was already dark, but a street lamp shone outside the window. And suddenly I was followed by two sisters, because I have three sisters, but the third one born late. These two are older. Behind me I heard a terrible scream of these sisters. I thought maybe they saw mouse, because it was really easy for mouse. It was the last building, behind meadows and forests. So I start looking around the floor, where that little creature is. I was convinced, and I couldn't see anything, especially because the only light was the light from this street lamp, and in room was dark. And I look by the window, and I saw a face. Very clear, three-dimensional, as they say today, HD, but in three dimension, a demonic face. Strange, very large size, it filled the entire surface of the window. Such a hairy face, white nose, eyes without pupils, only proteins. Four horns, which surprised me because as a child I did not have such an image of the devil. It was against my expectation. Two smaller on front, two larger on the back, and eye without pupils. It was so scary. And from this eye emanate such white light, but very cold. And when I look into that eye, I had catalepsis. It means I lost feeling of my body. And I was paralyzed in a split of second. And I was in the orbit of that gaze. Category of time disappear. So I couldn't calculate later how long it lasts, because time stop exist. Like suddenly I would find myself in area beyond the time. And I had no power to run away over my body. So I was necessarily looking into the eyes of this being. And I saw clearly as this being distracts the matter to show itself. And this matter disappeared upwards, not downwards somewhere, dissolved to the right side of the window. And I remember when it disappeared, I recovered for a long time, and I was returning with my awareness to individual sectors of the body, that I have a neck somewhere, hands, lungs, feeling slowly come back. I'm surprised that I didn't fall over without having any power over my legs, but I did stand. And I remember that after this experience I started to pray a lot, because my first thought was that this evil come to take me away. So I was terribly afraid that this evil would take me somewhere to hell. I knew the devil was in hell, that hell was bad at 5-year-old child. And it surprised my parents a lot, because at the age of 5 I started to pray a lot every day. So as I used to pray as a child, few seconds or half a minute, so now I was kneeling for a long time. This worried my parents a bit. They started to ask me why I'm kneeling so much. I started to talk what I experienced. They got a little bit scared, and they started telling me that it was my imagination. But I knew it was too strong experience to remove it from my consciousness. And my mind tried to suppress this experience. But it always followed me. Later I started to analyze the time when it appeared. So I was 5 years old, I'm from 1967. It happened in the fall of 1972. Later I found out that Paul VI was in 1972. Pope Paul VI made this famous speech that smoke of the devil entered the church. And this year I had that experience. And actually after years, I was always fascinated what it was. Was it authentic? Sometimes I was doubt, maybe it just seemed to me. And my friend became an exorcist. Father Grzegorz Przybyłek is an exorcist to this day. He is my good friend because we spent 2 years at school in Modlin. I told to him, listen Grzegorz, it is important to me. You are officially appointed exorcist by the church and my friend. Could you recognize my experience from childhood? Because I'm anxious, I have to answer myself what it was. What have you experienced? Well, I had strange experience of a demonic nature. He said, okay, I will be praying over you and you talk. I did so. I sat on a chair while he was standing beside me and pray. I started to talk, detail after detail, to the end. I finished this story. I have not seen his reaction. He was standing aside. I look back, he's sweaty and shivering. And he says that, listen, it was very strong demon. I don't know why he came to you. To understand this topic well, you need to understand logic of the evil spirit. Because this so-called UFOs, this is one of the categories of evil spirits, and if you understand it well, the way they think, then you understand UFOs' mode of action and their aims in regards to humanity nowadays. And now we will move on to proper content. First, act of creation. All spirits means angels are pure, spotless. There is no evil. And I have always been fascinated how it happened that in a spiritual reality which is pure, where all thoughts are exposed in front of God, there is no place to hide anything that appears evil. And now, to understand that, tradition of church mentioning about two texts. The first text is from the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 14, lines 11 to 15. I'm already here, close to this text. I will read this text. Text, Satire on the Death of Tyrant. This is the title in the Millennium Bible. This part of text, church referred to the fall of the first angel. All your pomp has been brought down to the grave, along with the noise of your harps. Maggots are spread out beneath you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. You have been cast down to the earth. You said in your heart, I will ascend to the heavens, I will rise my throne above the stars of God. This is important. Description of the moment of pride. I will ascend to the heavens, I will rise my throne above the stars of God. Desire of total power. I will sit enthroned on the Mount of Assembly, on the utmost heights of Mount of Zion. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will be like the highest. How is it? You dropped into Sheol, to the very bottom of the abyss. The most important are thoughts which were in Lucifer's heart. I will ascend to the heavens above the stars of God, so on the throne. I will take God's place. Second text referring to this rebel is from the book of prophet Ezekiel, and he also mentioning about the pride. This is chapter 28, verse 2nd, and then verse more or less part 11 with breaks up to line 18. I will read that because it is also important. In the pride of your heart you say, that is pride again. You said, I am God. Small hint now, I will refer to that. First, that temptation in him. I am God, then he come to human. You will be like God. Same content. This is verse 2nd in chapter 28 of the prophet Ezekiel. And we carry on. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone adorned you. Ruby, topaz, diamond, tashish, whole bunch of precious stones. You were anointed as a guardian cherub, for so I ordained you. You were on the holy mount of God. He was very favored. You walk among the fiery stones. Your heart became proud on account of your beauty. Simple thought, self-centered, and admiration of the own qualities. Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. So I thrown you to the earth. So I made a fire come out from you, and it consumed you. So evil born in him, and this evil ate him. This opposition to God. While this self-love process was progressing, angels was put to the test. Saints mentioning about this test. And I found a very interesting text about this test. This is a brochure, also available on the internet, and read on the internet. You can record it as an audio file. face to face with the demon, Father Giuseppe Tomaselli. This is an exorcist. During exorcism, this priest, Giuseppe Tomaselli, he had a dialogue with the demon, whose name is mentioned here. And I will quote this dialogue, which will show the breakthrough in rebellion against God, because here we saw the process that led to the rebellion. And now we will see the point, character of this rebellion. But tell me, Melit, who were you before you became a demon? I was an officer in the angelic court. I was a cherub. Now I'm an official of Satan. Why did you leave paradise and fall to hell? Did you not know about hell? Why did you rebel against God? Him, the Most High, told me and my companions that he will test us. He did not say that he will punish us with hell, with eternal fire. And there is a fire. How was this test look like? We were to accept that the Son of the Most High will have a human form, and we have an angelic nature which is much nobler than human. We supposed to worship him. Lucifer, who shone like the sun on the sky, rebelled. If he become a human, I will not serve him. I will be more important than him. A human form appeared during this trial. Was that man wearing a crown of the thorns, or was he on the cross? No, it was a normal human figure. Many angelic hosts shared Lucifer's opinion. A terrible fight ensued between Michael and Lucifer, and suddenly in the midst of fire and sulfur we fell into the hellish abyss. You made a lot of trouble that day. Do you regret evil you've done? Repentance? Never. Him, the Most High, should not humble himself so much. I hate and will always hate Christ. Because of him I'm in hell. This is important information. The fight between God and Satan focuses in a special way on the second person of the Holy Trinity. Why? Because when God revealed to the angels secrets of the second person of the Holy Trinity, gave them decision to make, will you serve him or not? And this decision divided angels between those who obeyed and those who rebelled. So the Lord Jesus is the person of the Holy Trinity, because of whom angelic world was divided. And therefore everything about Jesus provokes demon reactions. When we read the Gospel, Jesus appears, possessed person cannot withstand that, and shouts. For example, during Mass with the Blessed Sacrament displayed, a possessed person cannot withstand it and scream. There is a Jesus, and she knows that it is the main reason of the rebellion, the person of Jesus Christ. We have a situation in paradise, creation of human. It's hard here. Specified in detail whether the angels' rebellion took place before or after the creation of human. I did not find such information. Anyway, we know that in paradise already was tree of the knowledge good and evil, and it was also an ambassador of evil spirit. He had his place there and tried to influence on people. We know God warned people not to come close to this place. I will quote from Book of Genesis. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grown out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We know two very important trees. The tree of life is a gift of everlasting life, but also life that God gave for these living creatures. Paradise was full of life, plants, animals, all in full growth, and human with a great blessing of life. So matter of enormous, great vitality, but also genetic matters are combined with life. So all mechanism transmission of life. It was first tree and the second tree, vitality, and you can say genetic matters. And the second tree is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that is ethic morality. It started from the ethic of morality, from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Human decide on his own to reach for evil, that he will discover this evil on his own. He did not wait for God to explain it to him first. Probably God would explain it to him after time. He preferred to know it on his own from Satan. And here, heat in morality, it also results in a reduction of human vitality, but at first not so big, because we have information that the first generation lived a very long time, and this is a mystery for people. How it is possible that first generations lived so long? Because there are numbers, 930, 960 years. Some interpret the numbers as a symbolic, but symbolic number in the Bible are usually multiplication of 7. Or there is a second significant number, that is 12. For example, in Book of Revelation we have 144,000 saved in white clothes, which is a multiple of 12. It can be treated as a symbolic message. However, in this information regarding the longevity of the first generations, there is no multiplication of 7 and 12. So this is some confusion how to explain it. And here comes with help Joseph Flavius, a Jewish historian who had access to many sources to which we no longer have access. As I talk with this gentleman, as a highly educated person, probably he had access to Alexandrian library, and probably not only to this one, because he was in Rome and it was the culture center of those times. So he had access to many sources. And what Joseph Flavius writes about it. In this edition of the book, maybe I will show you, Ancient History of Israel. I have it from second-hand bookshop. I think this book was not reissued for the long time. On page 110 he writes like this. Noah lived after the flood for another 350 years, happily for all that time, and he died after 950 years of life. Let no one compare the short life of today's people with the age of those time people. Don't think that it is not true that they could live so long, even though today no one can reach that age. They were God's favorites and come directly from Him. Also, their food was better and helped them preserve longevity more than nowadays food. So it is understandable that they could live for so long, because of their rightness and benefits from their discoveries in astronomy and geometry. Their discoveries in the field of astronomy and geometry. God extended their lifespan, because they could not predict any phenomenon precisely, if they would live less than 600 years. That is the period of the great year. So first generation also discovered great astronomical cycles lasting 600 years. And all historians of ancient Greek agree with that, and barbarian ones. Manton, author of the Egyptian history, and Berossus, second translation, who collect the Chaldean traditions. Also Mohos, Histiaeus, and Jerome the Egyptian, who wrote the history of Phoenicia. They state the same as I'm telling here. Also Hesiod, Hecataeus, Hellanicus, Acugilaus, and next to them Ephorus and Nicolaus of Damascus. They write that ancient people lived 1,000 years, but let everyone have the view that suits him. So what process taking place? I'm sorry, I start to get up. But here is camera. I will be sitting, maybe I will be gesturing a little. Such a process was taking place. There was longevity. There was a great spiritual discovery. It was easy to make contact with spiritual reality. And because it was after birth sin, they contact with evil spirits. And there are many interpretations that so-called sons of God could possibly be also fallen angels. And also great moral corruption. And next, there is the second phenomenon. Because of longevity and contact with fallen angels, for so many years, people accumulate a great amount of knowledge. So let's imagine that we become mental active about 3rd, 4th years of age, then human ask the most questions. And we solve these questions for almost 800 years of full mental activity. So how many things can be observed, discussed and thought over? Find solutions. Next, beside accumulation of ordinary knowledge at those time, there is contact with fallen angels who have built-in knowledge. So full knowledge in package. They don't need to learn. Next, this topic I was less focused on because I'm not so competent, but I will tell you what traps evolutionists fall into. This is a hammer, sunk into limestone rock. According to geological and paleontological calculation, this limestone is 60 million years old. It is nonsense. 60 million years ago no one was producing hammers. This hammer got into hands of creationists from USA. Quality of this steel was examined. It turned out that it is very high quality, produced using advanced technique, that metal part of this hammer. And interesting thing was discovered in these artifacts, which seem to be from before the flood. There is different composition of oxygen mixed with metal. It suggests that back then on Earth was slightly different atmosphere. It means there was little bit higher atmospherical pressure and probably more oxygen. What is this assumption based on? I will tell you something interesting. We see reproduction of Brontosaurus. These are huge reptiles. They were 30 meters long, but their heads was size of horse head, nostril tiny like a horse, to provide oxygen to that body. Under present condition, this reptile would suffocate in a matter of hours. Size of this reptile and the size of nostril clearly suggest that there was more oxygen in the air. An experiment began. I don't have photos from these experiments, but greenhouse was built with climate like from those old times. Cherry tomato were planted there. The tree grew 9 meters high. Fruit was in size of a basketball. And this fully grown tree was taken to the exhibition, probably to Spain if I remember correctly. Everyone was asking what is that. There are photos from that event. No one believed that it is not a GMO, but it was just different condition of growth. They observed how behave insects in these special conditions. Insects live longer and grow much bigger. The wing of dragonfly found in fossil are 60 centimeters long. One thread linked with the other one. The answer why so much oil and coal came from. Oceans of oil are pumped out, and gas comes from partly animal, partly plant. What a large amount of gas. Until the flood, Earth was full of life, and we burn this treasure from before the flood now, because it is just coal. And people doubt that there was condition similar to paradise life. After birth scene, nature was touched by death, but was still very vital. This is where come from huge amount of coal, gas, and products coming from living creatures, that is from animals and plants. I spent a lot of time in Alaska. Summer there lasts long. There is no night during that time, and cabbage grow without any GMO. All vegetables are 2-3 times larger. Because the sun is up, there is no night at all. If you change the external condition, plants suddenly began react differently. It is the same hammer. Next, this is a shocking discovery. During discoveries, around Egyptian pyramids found turbines. It doesn't match as an antique artifacts. It is in a museum. Nobody knows how to interpret that. Creatures of various sizes, yes. It shows human development, men and women. What is shocking here? These are sperm reliefs, reproductive cells. It can be seen only under a microscope. This is probably Columbian discovery. It is such a hard material, practically impossible to machine it. I don't remember the name of this rock. But it is one of the hardest materials. And all human development is shown. How did these people know what cells look like? On such level that they can be seen only under a microscope. All cycle is shown up to the birth of boy and girl. Another thing, in granite rocks, very precisely drilled holes. Archaeologists also found this. So what kind of drills did they use? Until today, it is the latest achievement to drill like that. Even such unusual shapes. This is probably Egypt. It is possible to find that. In RPA was found steel balls in parts of ground which are 2.8 billion years old. What is going on then? It is completely nonsense that 2.8 billion years ago human made steel balls. If evolutionists assume that there was no life at all then, so this time dating is probably strongly stretched or made up. These are probably artifacts from period from the creation to the flood, because then this civilization was very advanced. And very strange thing, spark-like is placed in fossil, and next to it comparison to nowadays one, probably from United States, because here it says that. Human footprint, dated on 251-299 million years old. has this rock, but here's a human footprint, so it is another nonsense. Evolutionists are very confused. Dinosaur footprint and a piece of a human footprint. Petroglyphs. This one is from Utah in United States. The Indians left that petroglyphs. Clearly Diplodocus. In the Cambodian jungle, on the Buddhist temple is Stegosaurus. Amazing, or this reptile lived then, survived the flood, or there are some other cases, here already written in English. Footprint in Republic of South Africa, national park of this size, 7 feet. It is the size of a human. Foot is 1 meter, so human is around 7 meters tall. To not create people from scratch, but to let someone survive. And all what is totally spoiled, in Book of Genesis God even regretted that he created human. So create such a program to not create people from scratch, but to rebuild humanity from a group of people who are still normal. Shocking is that this is only 8 people. Noah and his wife, 3 sons of Noah and 3 wives of Noah. So it comes to the point where God has to do it, and we know he done it. And now we have testimony of Anne Catherine Emmerich. I will show to camera. I highly recommend this book. Mostly we have book that only describes passion and resurrection of Jesus. But Anne Catherine Emmerich also had revelation about the creation of the world and all Old Testament. And now, what is she telling? Book came out in 1993, title Life and Painful Passion of the Lord Jesus Christ according to vision by Anne Catherine Emmerich, page 40. I have often seen that when angels was falling, some of them regretted for a while and did not sink into the depth like the others. And for those ones God designated a desert place to stay, very high and inaccessible mountain, which during the flood turned into the sea. I mean the Black Sea. That is today's area between Ukraine and Turkey. These angels could influence on people if people walking away from God. So it is about fallen angels, of course. After the flood, fallen angels disappeared from this place and moved into the air. We have a UFO. In the day of judgment they will be cast into hell. So they will be there in space until the final judgment. This is Catherine Emmerich testimony. Let's have a look to the Bible now. The prophet Isaiah, chapter 24. The book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 24, verse 21. In that day, this is about doomsday. In that day the Lord will punish the powers in the heavens above, but only on the day of final judgment, powers in the heavens above. If it would be about faithful angels, God would have no reason for punishment. So it is about fallen angels. It's logical. The tragic that followed. 19th century, huge fashion for astrology, call up spirits, magnetism. Looks like the age of steam power and wisdom, but this year Helena Blavatsky has appeared. Karl Marx is born, and now what is happening in the 19th century? All the mainstreams that they will enter Satan's 100th anniversary as destroying humanity are demonically inspired. Karl Marx was baptized in childhood for his father to be able to exist in Prussian society, because there were prohibitions for the Jewish people regarding to economy. He passed high school test beautifully. He wrote about the unity of Christians, but in college he was dragged into esoteric group, and after a short time influenced by a group of Satanists in college, he was immediately initiated into deeper content. He writes like that. Desperate Prayer, text by Karl Marx. So God took away everything from me. In misfortunes, blows of fate, all of his world developed with no hope of return. And I have nothing left but revenge from now on. I want to build a throne on high. Reminder, Book of Isaiah. Almost a copy of Lucifer's text. We read this at the beginning of the speech. I want to build a throne on high. Its top will be icy and gigantic. His protection wall will be insane fear, communist system, as the top of the darkest agony. Further, in the Ulen play, I will shorten it to not tire you. As an early 30 years old Karl Marx wrote the Ulen play, he includes information from the deepest satanic initiation levels. It is an initiation with the use of a sword. At this stage of Satanism you are achieving top. And what is the text in the play by Ulen, in play of Karl Marx? He strikes his wand and gives me a sign, and I, with more and more certainty, dance the dance of death. And these are also Ulen, Ulen, this word resounds like death, then extend until fade out. Stop, I hold it, and then it rises from my mind, clear as bright as air, bonded like my bones. But I have strength to crush you with my arms, and crush humanity with the force of a hurricane, while for us abyss is opening, spread in the darkness. Sink to the depths, and I will follow you laughing. And next, in the text Le Menestrel, the fumes of hell come from my brain and fill it until I go mad. And my heart becomes completely changed. Look at this sword, the Prince of the Darkness sold it to me. Here is mentioned about sword, which is used on the highest level of initiation. And now briefly. Marx's great project has not stopped to be implemented. We say that communism has collapsed. Ms. Ciborowska here, if I remember correctly, she made us realize that they are the project is being continued. So what he described in his poetry, it is being implemented into a universal communist republic. We have the other side now, Hitler's brown socialism. Here I will tell the story to keep it short. Hitler walked around Vienna as a homeless person. He was using libraries. Historians found the reading cards he used. Lots of esoteric books. He was fascinated. He took the idea of an ideal race from there which will rule the world. Because these racist theories come from Hinduism, which divides people into caste races. Around him, quickly appear secret knowledge societies. It was the company of Tulle and the company of Real. Real is something like Far Eastern Force, equivalent of Chi. There is some power that must be mastered, and then the world can be conquered. It was real. This is an important message about these UFO demons in regards to Hitler. He employed practicing occultists in secret societies. There are given their names, surnames, you can find it. These details are given in book by Francis King, Satan and the Swastika. I recommend. He is a Protestant theologian, but he was interested in Hitler's occultism. These people make contact with the spiritual entities which introduce themselves as higher civilization emissaries from space. So we have clearly UFO. And they dictate to Hitler what to do step by step. There are many people who claim that Hitler has made a personal contact with them, and these are very interesting memories. Pope Benedict, who says that his dad or himself knew people from Hitler's friend circle who mentioned that Hitler sometimes go to his secret room and he come back shocked. They came to me again and told what messages he had received. It is a testimony contained in the diaries of Pope Benedict. He had contact with people who was in surrounding of Hitler. I don't remember now whether his dad had passed on to him that information, but I remember that information. Based on this message, Hitler wants to make great technological progress. All meetings with this creature were a traumatic experience for people. No positive experience were found. There are various documentation about. How do I see the role of this being in the end times? I have noticed three stages breaking down humanity by evil. 16th century strikes in the mind. That's Luther's revolt, destruction of so-called traditional Catholic teaching of Saint Thomas. It was a strike in the mind. It took long time. French Revolution looks like mind develops, but amount of fire is increasing. It is nonsense. And all those occultists. Second phase and the second spiritual power. It is attack on will. It was Hitler's project. Bring the will under control of the leader. And Hitler's first propaganda film about the election victory in 1934. It is entitled The Triumph of the Will. So he destroyed mind, then he destroyed will. Third element left. Human personality, feelings. This is that time. Don't hurt my feelings, emotional intelligence. He's working it out now. Last part left. Establishing human being. Human process this way is prepared to create something what prison planet documents call a swarm society. This is in Mega Satanist program. Create a swarm society. What is a swarm society? Convince people to implant microchip. Constantly chipping project is improving. With the chips, which are to replace ID cards, all put together. It's made to influence the way human brain works, which is not a secret. There are three types of brain waves: alpha, beta, gamma. Reading these waves is very easy. These biochips are designed to master how this waves works. If they will do it, well, or maybe it has already been done and we don't know about, then we have biorobots. Human personality disappears. In the book of Revelation is said that people who will accept sign of the beast on forehead will not be saved. To be saved, you need act of free will. God, I chose you, I reject Satan. With the use of this biochip, which could impacting work of brainwaves, that is in fact transform a human being into a being controlled by a devil with a remote control. The devil has remote control, man has a receiver. Free will is switched off, so in fact salvation is not possible. And all story end. What is my thesis? What could these fallen angels do? To convince people to so difficult decision as acceptation of biochips, some people already got implant and boast about it. Already in year of 2000 was TV program Morning Breakfast, where first Polish woman boasted that she had implant and was satisfied, on hand or forehead. They are already doing mass production. Process is already taking place. To convince people to so difficult decision as accepting these biochips, because Christian, Catholic and more active Protestants warn, be careful, this is devil. But convince, you have to move people with something. So I think this is that job of these fallen angels, that they will appear, they will be allowed to shown on the radio, press, television, and they will say that it is wonderful project because in their civilization it works well. Why do I see them in this process at this point? Because once all people get these biochips, they are not needed anymore. Human is already done. They can rest then. It will be a crucial moment. Acceptance of common implantation of biochips. And I think they will show up at this crucial moment. How are they manifesting now? The number of ufological sects is increasing. I will briefly tell. For example, some being appears, communicates with a medium from ufological sect. They say very often that they are from the Pleiades, so Jesus Sananda from Pleiades appears. There are information about this document. You will be able to find on YouTube. He says, I did not die on the cross, I was not born from Virgin Mary at all. This is not true, I came by ship. I didn't die on the cross. Quran also denies death of Jesus on the cross. Someone else died instead of him there. So here as well, didn't die on the cross and didn't rise from dead. Core of Christian dogmas is destroyed. What is said? Each of you must awaken your divine consciousness. This is what Jesus Sananda says, which is a typical New Age speech. In New Testament, Saint Paul wrote, that at the end of time people will turn towards signs of demons. What thesis we have here? First one, evolution. First thesis he mentioned about, second one, atheism, there is no God. Further, he will mention about reincarnation. How is it that fallen creature says theories that dominated 20th century? And these theories entered science world as legitimate. After all, these are teaching of demons. In second part of the interview with this creature, it is difficult to find out, but in fact it coincides with what so-called ufological sects receive from medium. The main cause of the problem are dogmas. Dogmas must be destroyed, so truths needed for salvation. This is his another thesis. And see how this thesis penetrates into the consciousness of people today. To accept this demonic teaching. What is the solution for us? Simple thing. Our Holy Mary said what to do. Pray on rosary. There was a great penance for the remarkable changes that took place. There was a great penance, there was a rosary to the limit. The Life Defense Project probably in normal situation wouldn't pass. It's a miracle that somehow it passed. But only partly, because this topic is not finished. The rosary, second thing, repentance. It would be good if such mass action would taking place. And third thing, true. This true, like Saint Thomas Aquinas told us, accordance between thoughts and reality. Reality is real, not delusional. And I think that what Saint Sister Faustina says about spark from Poland is this trend. These three things, the rosary, penance, truth. And now spark will come out from Poland and spread around the world. In Poland, rosary began. Italy took over, Ireland, United States, a spark spreads. If this divine action will be intense enough, it will be possible to stop these projects. God help us in that. Amen.
Sounds good so far, doesn't it? And love and peace and getting together, you know, it's almost like what Jack Nicholson said in Invaders from Mars, can't we all get along, you know? And then he goes on to say this, and to me this really rung a bell, and I ran into this very, very early in my research, and it kind of frightened me a bit. And he said the space beings also seek to bring about a single solidified government which will conduct itself in spiritual principles and permit all of its citizens to grow constructively in love. And I began seeing from that point to the present that if you talk about alien messages, they do talk about a new world order, a one world government, leaping up to the next level, okay, the age of Aquarius, and pulling all of the world together under one kind of leadership.